Hey, Sojourn. In times like this, it can be hard to have language for what we're supposed to think, what we're supposed to feel. And so today I want to talk about the language of lament, the biblical language of lament. Lament is this vertical cry to God. It's not horizontal complaint. It's taking our honest, real pain and emotion and bringing it to God in worship. Now, 1/3 of the Psalms are lament Psalms, and in the middle of those Psalms, you will find honest pain, raw emotion by the psalmist being brought to God in worship. And honest lament and real trust are never incompatible. Never. But here's the reality, Sojourn. Often we trust when we can understand why. When we know why something is happening, we can then trust what is happening. But in this case, we don't have answers for why. We're not supposed to. In fact, listen to N.T. Wright on the Christian's posture in the middle of this current COVID-19 crisis. He says this: "It is no part of the Christian vocation to be able to explain what is happening and why. In fact, it is part of the Christian vocation not to be able to explain and to lament instead. As the Spirit laments with us, so we become, even in our self-isolation, small shrines where the presence and healing love of God can dwell." See, his point is this, that we're not supposed to know why something is happening. We're not supposed to figure it out. We're supposed to be a people of lament instead. And in our lament, we can be a people where the presence of healing love of God dwell. And dwell for one another and dwell for our world. We can be the embodiment of the healing love of God in our lament for our neighbors, for each other. That honest lament is a distinctly Christian response. It's the language of the Psalms, and it should be our language right now. And so how do we take this complaint and turn it into distinctly Christian lament? How do we go about lamenting? Well, Psalm 10, and as much as I want to just walk through the entirety of the Psalm, as I just miss teaching the scriptures to you, I'm going to give a flyover to walk through this rhythm of lament inside the Psalm, or what you'll find in the Psalms. It begins like this, verse 1. He says, "Why, O Lord, do you stand far away? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble?" And then it goes on for the next 11 verses, or for the next 10 verses, 1 through 11, with this extended lament. This extended lament about how the wicked are arrogantly exploiting the poor and taking advantage of the helpless and seemingly getting away with it. And then we hit verse 12, where the psalmist turns and he asks God for help. It begins like this: "Arise, O Lord, O God, lift up your head, forget not the afflicted." See, in verse 12, there's this pivot in the psalm where the psalmist goes from lamenting the reality of the world that he's living in to asking God to intervene, asking God for help, asking God to help. And then we hit verse 16, where he declares his trust in God and says, "The Lord is king forever and ever." See, it begins with honest lament and then goes on to asking God for help and finishes with declaring his trust in God. And so if you want to learn how to lament, here it is. At the core of lament are these three components: telling God how you feel and what's happening, and telling God honestly, being honest with the Lord about how you feel and what's happening. And then second, asking God for help, asking God to act, asking God to intervene. And then third, declaring your trust in God, declaring our trust in the goodness and the mercy and the justice of the Lord. Sojourn, here's what we want you to know: that lament is the language of the Psalms, and it can be our language right now. An honest, real lament is a distinctly Christian response, and it should be our response. Honest Christian lament will keep us from pendulum to the world is just completely crashing down, or a shallow optimism. Distinctly Christian lament, it's the language of the Psalms, and it can be our language now. And so how are we going to learn as a community to practice Christian lament? Well, I want to give 2 points of application. First, our parishes. I want to encourage all of our parishes that the next time you gather over Zoom or Google Hangout or whatever medium that we're using, to give time to lament. to give time for lament, to give time to, one, be honest with God about how you're feeling, about how each one of you are feeling, about what's happening. Two, asking God to help, asking God to act and to intervene, to bring an end to this COVID-19 crisis, to save lives. And then third, declaring our trust in God, declaring that we trust in His goodness and His mercy and His justice and His love for the world. And then second point of application. Tonight at 8:30 on our YouTube live stream, Sojourn Heights, we're going to have our first of our weekly nights of prayer and worship, where Jenna David is going to lead us in song, lead us in prayer, and we're going to have a time where our chat function is going to be open, where we can post a prayer. I believe you need a YouTube account for that, and so get that set up before tonight so that we can post prayer requests. And as a family, we can see them and we can be praying for one another. But when we gather for prayer and worship tonight at 8:30, here's what's going to happen. In our prayers, in our confessions, in our songs, we're going to learn to lament together. We're going to learn to be a people of lament. It's the language of the Psalms. Let's let it be our language right now. We love you, Sojourn. We'll see you tonight at 8:30 on our YouTube live stream, where we learn together in our confession, in our prayer, in our songs, to be a people of lament.